Picture two windows on the same street, man. Imagine it right now. Let me tell you right away. We'll figure out how this story ends in a bit. But first, let me tell you how they got there, because I've been elbow deep in these markets for years. I've seen more accounts than I can count. I couldn't even tell you how many people I've met who make a big salary on paper, but are actually broke underneath. Look, behind the first window, there's someone making $50,000 a month. Warm tea in hand, notebook open, no rush at all. Behind the second window, there's someone making 3 times that, $150,000. But their desk is a mess, overdue bills in hand, it's past midnight, they're literally wrestling with a calculator. So let me ask you, how does a guy earning 3 times less end up being the one who actually builds real wealth in the end? That's the whole point right there. Not textbook talk. I'll walk you through this step by step, with numbers, with real stories I've seen in the market. 10 years ago, these two were actually in the same spot. Small rented apartments, used cars, that same restlessness people carry in their 20s. So the gap between them was never the starting point. Small decisions nobody noticed piled up over time and turned into 2 completely different lives. Here's the first big misconception. The moment your brain sees that 150,000 number, it goes, I'm 3 times richer. But the system doesn't play nice, man. As income rises, every extra lira gets taxed at a higher bracket. Insurance premiums pile on. And what actually lands in your pocket never reaches 3 times. Maybe double, 2.5 times at most. And that's exactly where the real trap springs. The high earner starts spending based on the imaginary number on paper, not the real money in hand. They start feeling like a 150,000 lira person and budgeting like one. We call this lifestyle inflation in the market. Every time you get a raise, spending quietly gets a raise too. None of it looks crazy on its own. A slightly nicer car, a slightly better neighborhood, forgotten subscriptions, food delivery that's become a habit. None of it is done with bad intent. But stacked together, every dollar of that salary gets assigned a job before it even lands in your hand. I call this silent bleeding, because the patient dies without ever feeling the pain. On the other side, the lower earner never let their lifestyle inflate as their salary grew. They sent the difference to where money is actually supposed to grow. It's a simple move, really. The day you get a raise, you bump up the automatic transfer. The money leaves before you ever touch it, and you never miss what you never saw. Now, here's the part that really matters. Real wealth isn't built by how much you earn. It's built by how much you actually keep. That's called your savings rate, and I think it's the single most important number in the market. For example, someone earning $50,000 who saves 20% puts away $10,000 a year in investments. Someone earning $150,000 who can only save 5% because of all that spending puts away $7,500 a year at most. So the person earning $100,000 less is actually saving $2,500 more per year, net. Think about that again, because it's not something to brush off. Now run that for 30 years at an average 7% annual return. The lower earner ends up with close to $950,000 by the end, while the higher earner is stuck around $700,000. That gap of over $200,000 comes entirely from behavior, not salary. Here's the painful part. In the market, we call this group Henrys. High earners, not yet rich. Nice car, fancy house, but nothing underneath. That's because fixed costs lock them into place. The big mortgage, the car payment, private school, the bills. The lower earner with a flexible budget can tighten up whenever they want. But the high earner, buried in fixed costs, can't move an inch. That's what traps them in a job they hate. They call it golden handcuffs for a reason. It's not a coincidence. There's also this. When money is scarce, people track every penny. When it's abundant, they stop noticing. A 40 lira meal doesn't register. A 300 lira item goes unnoticed.
That's exactly why high earners often feel poor, because they've stopped paying attention a long time ago. Then life throws a surprise at you. Car trouble, hospital bills, a layoff. For the saver, it's just an inconvenience. But for the non-saver, it turns into credit card debt. Interest rates on that are pushing past 20% these days.
Meanwhile, a decent savings account gives you close to 4%. Money sitting in a bank account at 0.1% is quietly eroding. Money that doesn't grow against inflation is already shrinking. But underneath all of this, it really comes down to identity. Someone who sees themselves as an investor finds saving natural. Someone who tells themselves, "I've earned this," finds every purchase justified. There's also this fake status thing. People spend to show off. But showing off and being wealthy are complete opposites, because every lira you spend to look rich is a lira stolen from the money that would actually make you rich. The wealthiest people I've seen were never the highest earners. They were the ones who understood what enough meant and kept saving past that line. Because the high earners line never stops moving. It shifts with every raise. But the person who can say, "This is enough for me," has a line that stays put, one they can actually cross. So let's go back to those two windows.
The woman at the midnight desk isn't drowning because she earns too little. She's drowning because her money was never planned. The woman sipping her tea isn't winning because of some hidden advantage. She's winning because she made ordinary but consistent choices and trusted time to do the rest.
Same street, same starting point. But one built a life that looks rich, the other built one that actually is. And remember, your salary is just the size of your shovel. How deep the hole gets depends on when you started and whether you actually understood the rules of the game. The real gap was never between 50,000 and 150,000. It's between the person who understands money and the person who thinks a big salary alone will save them.